Hello and welcome to another extraordinary narrative. Today I'm going to tell you a story that will touch each of your hearts, a journey of resistance, unconditional love, and hope that transcends time. Prepare to meet Esperanza, Hope, a girl who, even when rejected and forgotten, found in human kindness her greatest strength. A story that teaches us that true love knows no social barriers and that human dignity always prevails. Before we begin, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I want to know from which corner of the United States, Britain, or anywhere in the world you're following this narrative. And if you enjoy stories that move and inspire, don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our touching stories. TAS 1851. Location: São Bento Plantation, Paraíba Valley, Paulista, Imperial, Brazil. The rains of March 1851 fell upon São Bento Plantation like tears from heaven, an omen of what was to come. In the manor house of thick adobe walls, where the aroma of roasted coffee mixed with the perfume of garden jasmines, Dona Isabel Cristina fought her final battle. Baron Tomás Rodrigues de Vasconcelos paced the veranda like a caged animal, the creaking of the hardwood planks echoing his nervous steps. His aristocratic hands trembled as he clutched his golden rosary, praying not for his wife's life, but for the arrival of the long-dreamed-of male heir. "Lord Baron," Josefa, the midwife's voice, cut through the humid dawn air. "The lady is asking for you." In the room of heavy curtains where melting wax candles created dancing shadows on the walls, Isabel Cristina lay between embroidered linen sheets. Her face, once rosy as garden roses, was pale as the marble of little angels in the plantation cemetery. "Tomás," her voice was a fragile whisper. "If it's a girl, protect her. Promise me." The Baron turned his gaze to the window, where the coffee plants disappeared into darkness. 5 daughters that woman had already borne. 5. And São Bento Plantation, ancestral heritage of Isabel's family, needed a man to guide its destiny. A child's cry broke the silence. Josefa lifted into her arms a girl with chestnut hair and eyes that promised to be green like new coffee leaves. "A daughter, Lord Baron, healthy, and take her from my sight." The words came out like whiplashes. "And see that I never lay eyes on her again." Isabel Cristina managed one last look at her daughter, her lips moving in silent prayer, before life drained from her body like water from a broken pitcher. In the slave quarters, Katerina raised her head from the loom where she worked, even in the precarious light of dawn. Something in the air had changed, something that made her mother's heart awaken to a terrible premonition. And then she saw the overseers walking toward the coffee plantation, carrying a bundle too small to be anything other than. What terrible secret is being carried to the depths of the coffee plantation? What will Katerina do when she discovers the truth? Morning dew still kissed the coffee leaves when Katerina, with steps silent as a jaguar's, followed the overseer's trail. Her bare feet knew every stone, every fallen branch on the plantation floor where she had worked since childhood. Her heart beat in her chest like a drum at a festival ground, but it wasn't joy she felt. It was the same premonition she'd had when they tore her 3 children from her arms to sell them like cattle at Lorena Market. Near Monkey Creek, where vegetation grew denser and coffee plants mixed with wild ferns, she found what she sought. Among the wet foliage, a bundle of fine fabric moved weakly. Katerina knelt as one kneels to pray, her hands trembling as she pulled away the linen cloth. And there, like a miracle wrapped in suffering, was a newborn child. A girl with pink skin, hair that promised to be chestnut, and eyes that slowly opened, revealing a water green she knew well, the same eyes as Dona Isabel Cristina. "My God," she whispered, looking around to make sure she was alone. "What have they done to you, little one?" the baby cried, a sound fragile as the call of a wounded flycatcher. Katerina wrapped her in her own skirt, feeling the warmth of the tiny body against her chest. In that moment, a certainty sprouted in her soul like water from a pure spring. This child was her second chance, the gift God sent to heal the wounds left by her lost children. "I'll call you Esperanza," she murmured, walking back to the slave quarters by less visible paths, "because you are the hope I lost and now have found." In the slave quarters, Rosa, who had lost her own baby the previous week, received the child with tears in her eyes. Her milk, which had no one to nourish, now found purpose. "Where did this girl come from?" asked Benedito the blacksmith, observing the scene with worried eyes. "God brought her to us," answered Katerina, settling Esperanza in an improvised bed made of straw and clean rags. "And God will protect her," But how to hide a child on a plantation where everything is watched? What plan will Katerina weave to protect her new daughter of the heart? The years passed like coffee seasons, planting, harvest, drying, and Esperanza grew protected by a network of love that extended throughout the slave quarters. In the improvised attic of the barracks, among sacks of corn and beans, Katerina had created a nest where the girl spent her days when there was inspection movement on the plantation. At 5 years old, Esperanza already knew she must remain silent when she heard strange footsteps. Her green eyes, now clear as spring water, observed everything with the curiosity of one who learns the world through whispers and stories told by candlelight. Katerina, who had served in Father Antonio's house in Santos before being sold to the Baron, taught the girl her first letters using yellowed Bible pages and newspaper scraps left over from the big house. In the dim lamplight, Esperanza's small fingers traced letters like one drawing flowers in air. A for amor, love, said Katerina. B for bondade, kindness. C for coragem, courage. And E, Mother Katerina. E for Esperanza, my daughter. For hope, Rosa sang her African songs that her grandmother had brought from across the sea, melodies that spoke of distant lands and freedom that flew like a bird on the horizon. The other women from the slave quarters took turns caring for her, each contributing a little love, a little protection. This girl appeared from nowhere, they told curious visitors. Daughter of a slave who fled to Santos, Katerina raised her as if she were her own, and everyone accepted the story, because lies told with love taste like truth. During hot afternoons, when the sun made the air shimmer over the coffee plantation, Esperanza learned feminine crafts. Her agile fingers soon mastered cross-stitch, and she embroidered initials on handkerchiefs with the same perfection that Donna Isabel Cristina had embroidered in her bridal trousseau. In the slave quarters kitchen, she helped prepare local foods, tropero beans, cornbread, papaya candy, while listening to the women's conversations about abolitionist movements reaching the cities. Baron Tomas, immersed in melancholy and alcohol since his wife's death, rarely left the big house. His 4 legitimate daughters had married landowners from other regions, leaving him alone with his memories and remorse. The plantation functioned almost by itself, under the supervision of overseer Bento, a trusted mulatto who preferred not to ask questions about children who appeared and disappeared in the slave quarters. But secrets have a life of their own, and some are too big to remain buried. What unexpected event will threaten the peace built with such care? The morning of September 1856 dawned with the sweet aroma of sugarcane juice being prepared at the plantation's sugar mill. Esperanza, now 5 years complete, had escaped Katerina's watchfulness to chase yellow butterflies dancing among hibiscus bushes. Her chestnut hair waved in the wind like silk ribbons, and her crystalline laughter echoed through the courtyard when she stumbled and fell, dirtying the little calico dress that Rosa had sewn with such care. She got up alone, wiping tears with the backs of her small hands, showing the same proud dignity her biological mother had demonstrated even in the most difficult moments. It was then that a shadow fell over her. Baron Tomas Rodriguez de Vasconcelos, who had left the big house for the first time in weeks to check the sugar grinding, stopped as if he had seen a ghost. There before him stood a perfect miniature of Isabel Cristina, the same water-green eyes, the same delicate facial lines, the same proud bearing that had enchanted him years ago. Who are you, girl?" His voice came out hoarse, harsh from alcohol and neglect. Esperanza raised her eyes to the tall man with graying beard, instinctively sensing that something important was happening. "I am Esperanza, sir. Esperanza," he repeated, as if the name had a bitter taste in his mouth. "Where did you come from? Who are your parents?" Before the girl could answer, Katerina appeared running, her heart racing like a galloping horse. "Forgive me, Lord Baron. The girl escaped from me." The Baron studied the 2 figures, the middle-aged woman trying to protect the child, and the girl who observed him without fear, only with curiosity. Pieces of a puzzle he had tried to forget began fitting together in his mind. "Bento," he shouted to the overseer passing nearby. "I want to talk to you, now." In the big house office, among old plantation maps and ancestor portraits, the interrogation lasted hours. Bento, a man of few words and many scars, tried to maintain the official version, daughter of a runaway slave, raised out of charity by Katerina. But when the Baron called Katerina to the office, alone, the tension in the air was thick as molasses. "Don't lie to me, Katerina. I know how to recognize my own family's features." "This girl is my daughter, isn't she?" Katerina remained standing, though trembling. Her eyes met his, and for a moment she seemed like the lady of the house. "If you know, sir, why do you ask?" "Because I want to hear it from your mouth." "Yes, sir. She is your daughter, the one you ordered abandoned in the coffee plantation the night Donna Isabel Cristina died." The silence that followed was heavy as lead. The Baron turned to the window, observing the same coffee plantation where he had ordered his own flesh and blood abandoned. "And why did you save her?" "Because God doesn't abandon the innocent, sir, and because a mother knows how to recognize a child who needs love." What will be the Baron's reaction when confronting his own cowardice? Will the secret kept for 5 years change Esperanza's destiny? The following years passed like pages turned by gentle wind, each bringing imperceptible but profound changes to life at São Bento plantation. Baron Tomás, after the revelation that had struck him like lightning in clear sky, had withdrawn even more into his melancholy, but had taken no action against Caterina or Esperanza. It seemed that knowing of his daughter's existence was enough. He didn't wish to have her near, but could no longer try to destroy her either. Esperanza grew like a flower in a well-tended garden, even if that garden was made of beaten earth and adobe walls. At 10 years old, she already mastered the 4 mathematical operations and read with fluency that would impress any girl of São Paulo society. Caterina, zealous educator, had found creative ways to expand the girl's learning. "Today we'll learn about geography," she would say, spreading on the floor old newspaper pieces that reported news from other provinces. "Look, here it talks about Rio de Janeiro, where the court is, and here about the war happening in North America, where blacks fight for freedom." Esperanza absorbed everything like dry earth absorbs rain. At 14, she already wrote letters for slaves from neighboring plantations, helping them maintain contact with relatives sold to distant regions. Her tiny, elegant handwriting ran across the page like lace over satin, each word chosen with a goldsmith's care. "Mother Caterina," she asked one afternoon while they sewed in the shade of the centennial mango tree, "why does Lord Baron never seek me out?" The other girls on the plantation speak of their fathers with affection. Caterina stopped her needle in mid-air, as if sewing not only the fabric, but also the right words to respond. "Some people, my child, have hearts hardened by pain. That doesn't mean they don't love, it means they don't know how to love. And do you know how my real mother was? She was like you, girl, kind, intelligent, and had a heart big as the sky. That's why God chose her to be your mother, even if for a short time." Whispered conversations among the female slaves had told Esperanza fragments of her story. She knew she was the Baron's daughter, knew of her mother's tragic death, knew she had been rejected, but instead of bitterness, this knowledge had planted in her heart a deep understanding of human nature. During these years, news from the outside world reached the plantation, stirring hearts in the slave quarters. The American Civil War echoed like distant thunder, bringing stories of slaves fighting for their own liberation. Conversations about abolition were whispered in courtyards after work, like secret prayers of those dreaming of better times. The Baron himself seemed to age more each year, his hair whitening not just from age but from the weight of remorse he carried. He rarely left the big house, and when he did, it was to walk through the garden where Isabel Cristina had planted her favorite roses. But destiny, like a river flowing toward the sea, would bring changes no human heart could foresee. What unexpected visitor will arrive at the plantation carrying secrets from the past? September 1866 arrived at São Bento plantation, laden with the aroma of first rains and an indefinable expectation that hung in the air like morning mist. Esperanza, now 15 years old, had become a young woman of singular beauty, not just for the harmony of her features, but for the light that radiated from her green eyes and the dignity she carried in every gesture. It was on one of those September mornings that an elegant carriage climbed the dirt road leading to the big house, its wheels raising a golden cloud of dust. The coachman, a free black man dressed in navy blue livery, asked for the residence of Baron Tomás Rodrigues de Vasconcelos. From the carriage's interior descended a middle-aged man, wearing a black frock coat and top hat, carrying a leather briefcase that seemed to hold important documents. Dr. Vicente Carneiro de Matos, a lawyer established in Lisbon but born in Brazil, had crossed the ocean on a mission he had kept for 15 years. "Lord Baron," he said after initial formalities in the big house parlor, "I come here in fulfillment of the last wish of Donna Isabel Cristina Rodrigues de Vasconcelos, your deceased wife. The Baron paled as if he had seen Isabel Cristina's ghost. What wish? Dr. Vicente opened his briefcase and removed an envelope sealed with red wax, where the seal with Isabel Cristina's family coat of arms was clearly visible. Your wife, sensing she might not survive childbirth, left me specific instructions. I should deliver this letter to you 15 years after her death, should I discover that your newborn daughter was alive and well cared for. How do you know about my daughter? Donna Isabel Cristina was a wise woman and knew your heart well, Lord Baron. She foresaw that you might reject the child if it were a girl. Therefore she took precautions. With trembling hands, the Baron broke the seal. Isabel Cristina's delicate handwriting seemed to dance on the paper yellowed by time. My beloved Tomas, if you read these words, it means our daughter survived your scorn and found love where she should have found rejection. Knowing your obsession with a male heir, I leave clear instructions. Our daughter has the right to half of my inheritance, which includes the plantation's best lands and 200 contos of rays in gold. But this right is conditional on her receiving education appropriate to a young woman of her position. If I discover she was mistreated or neglected, the entire inheritance will be destined to the Holy House of Mercy of São Paulo. The choice is yours, my love. Repair your error or lose forever what we built together. The silence that followed was heavy as melted lead. Dr. Vicente observed the transformations in the Baron's face: surprise, guilt, fear, and finally a kind of bitter relief. Where is she now? If you permit me, I would like to meet her. I also have instructions to evaluate her well-being and education. What encounter awaits Esperanza? How will she react to learning that her mother, even in death, continued to protect her? And what will be the choice that changes not only her life, but the destiny of the entire plantation? The afternoon sun filtered through the mango tree leaves when Dr. Vicente Carneiro de Matos found Esperanza for the first time. She sat on a straw mat, teaching first letters to a group of slave children, her sweet and patient voice echoing in the slave quarters courtyard. A is for alegria, joy, she said, tracing the letter in the dirt with a stick. B is for bondade, kindness. C is for cariño, affection. The lawyer stopped a few meters away, impressed not only by the young woman's beauty, her chestnut hair shining in the sun, her green eyes clear as river water, but by her naturalness in teaching children that society considered property. Esperanza, he called respectfully. She raised her eyes and, with natural grace, stood and approached. That's me, sir. How may I help you? The education in her voice, the elegant posture even wearing a simple calico dress, the intelligence that shone in her eyes, everything confirmed what Dr. Vicente expected to find. This young woman had received an education that many daughters of São Paulo's aristocracy didn't possess. I am Dr. Vicente Carneiro de Matos, lawyer for your maternal family. I need to speak with you about important matters. Caterina, who was watching from afar, approached with a heavy heart. She knew this moment would come someday, the moment when Esperanza's world would expand beyond the limits of the slave quarters. May Mother Caterina stay? Asked Esperanza naturally. Certainly, child. Actually, I would like to speak with both of you. In the shade of the centennial mango tree, Dr. Vicente related the story of Donna Isabel Cristina's letter, the precautions taken by the biological mother, the inheritance awaiting Esperanza. The young woman listened with impressive serenity, as if destiny's winds were merely a gentle breeze on a summer afternoon. So, she said finally, my mother continued to protect me even after death. Exactly. And now, my dear young woman, the time has come to decide your future. You can claim your inheritance, receive formal education in São Paulo, become a lady of society, or you can sue your father for negligence and abandonment, in which case you would receive the entire inheritance, not just half. Esperanza exchanged a deep look with Caterina. In 15 years of living together, they had developed a communication that dispensed with words. And in that look, Caterina saw that the girl she had raised had become a wise woman. Dr. Vicente, said Esperanza, her voice clear as a church bell, I would like to propose a third option. What surprising choice will Esperanza make? Will her decision change not only her destiny, but that of all the people around her? What can a heart educated in true love teach about forgiveness and justice? Twilight painted the sky in golden and rosy tones when Esperanza, accompanied by Dr. Vicente and Caterina, headed to the big house for the conversation that would define not only her future, but the destiny of many lives at São Bento plantation. Baron Tomás waited in the main parlor, among jacaranda furniture that told stories of past generations. His eyes avoided meeting his daughters when she entered, but he couldn't help noticing the dignity with which she carried herself, like a princess who had always known of her royal lineage, even raised among commoners. "Father," said Esperanza simply, making him shiver upon hearing that word he never expected to hear. Dr. Vicente presented the legal options: partial inheritance with reconciliation, or judicial process with total inheritance. Esperanza listened to everything in silence, her small hands crossed in her lap, eyes fixed on a window that framed the coffee plantation where her destiny had been born. "Dr. Vicente," she said finally, "I ask you to record my decision." Everyone in the room held their breath. "I accept my inheritance, but with my own conditions. I want to use the resources to establish a school for orphaned and freed girls. I want to buy freedom for all the female slaves on this plantation. I want to create a fund for land acquisition for ex-slaves who wish to begin new lives." The Baron raised his eyes, surprised. "As for my father," continued Esperanza, "I don't wish to sue him or humiliate him. I understand that grief over my mother's loss clouded his judgment, but I also cannot pretend we have a father-daughter relationship that never existed." Dr. Vicente wrote rapidly, impressed by the young woman's maturity. "I propose that we maintain a cordial and respectful relationship, like neighbors who esteem each other. The inheritance administration will be divided among me, my mother Caterina, whom I ask to be legally recognized as my adoptive mother, and my father in equal parts." "Caterina." Dr. Vicente looked at the woman who remained standing, silent tears rolling down her face. "Do you accept being Esperanza's legal mother?" "I accept," she replied, her voice choked with emotion. "I always was." Baron Tomas slowly stood, approaching the window. For long minutes he observed the same coffee plantation where he had ordered the abandonment of that child, who now offered him not revenge, but dignity. "Esperanza," he said without turning, May I know why you chose this path?" "Because I learned, Father, that true love doesn't seek revenge, it transforms. I learned that justice isn't about causing pain, but creating opportunities. And I learned that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, it means choosing a better future than the past." When he finally turned to look at her, the Baron saw in his daughter's green eyes not a reflection of Isabel Cristina, but something unique and special, the wisdom of one who was unconditionally loved by someone who knew the true value of love. How will the plantation transform with the changes proposed by Esperanza? What reactions will her generosity provoke among the slaves and neighboring families? The weeks following the great decision brought to São Bento plantation an agitation not seen since the times when Donna Isabel Cristina organized her harvest festivals. But this time the movement had a different flavor, the flavor of hope and freedom. Dr. Vicente had returned to São Paulo to arrange all necessary documentation, taking with him Esperanza's detailed instructions. The young woman, for her part, began meticulous cataloging work. How many female slaves were on the plantation, their skills, their dreams for the approaching free future. "Rosa," she said, sitting in the shade of the same mango tree where she had learned her first letters, "when you're free, what would you like to do?" Rosa, now 40 years old with hair whitened by time and work, smiled shyly. "I always dreamed of having my own house, little mistress. A small house, but mine. And maybe a yard to plant herbs. And you, Benedicta?" "I wanted to learn to read properly, like the little mistress teaches the children. I've always been curious about letters." Each conversation was a seed planted in Esperanza's heart. She took note of everything in a notebook that Caterina had sewn especially for this purpose, with a cover of cross-stitched embroidered fabric. Baron Tomas observed these activities from a distance, initially with suspicion, then with growing curiosity. He had never bothered to know the dreams of the people who worked his land. To him they were just hands that picked coffee and arms that carried sacks. But Esperanza treated them as complete human beings with stories, hopes, and their own dignity. One afternoon, he found her teaching mathematics to a group of children in the courtyard. "What are you doing here?" he asked, not with harshness but with genuine curiosity. "I'm teaching them to count, Father. A free person needs to know how to handle money, calculate prices, understand contracts." Esperanza didn't raise her eyes from the ground where she drew numbers with a stick. "Freedom without education is like a bird with clipped wings." Those words echoed in the Baron's mind for days. Slowly, something began to change in his heart, hardened by grief and pride. He began paying attention to the names of people who worked for him, noticing their families, their individual talents. Caterina, meanwhile, lived a mixture of joy and apprehension. Joy at seeing Esperanza assuming her place in the world, apprehension knowing this meant changes she could barely comprehend. "Are you going to leave me now, girl?" she asked one afternoon while they prepared papaya candy in the slave quarters kitchen. "Never, Mother Caterina. You'll come with me wherever I go. We're family now, legally and forever." News of Esperanza's plans reached neighboring plantations like wind carrying seeds. Some landowners showed alarm at the idea of a young woman buying freedoms en masse. Others, more pragmatic, began calculating how much they could profit selling slaves to Esperanza instead of keeping them. What opposition will Esperanza encounter in her revolutionary plans? How will the local community react to the changes she intends to implement? Autumn 1866 arrived at the plantation laden with tensions that hung in the air like humidity preceding rains. News about Esperanza's plans had spread through neighboring plantations faster than dry leaves carried by wind, and not all reactions were favorable. Colonel Bernardino de Almeida, owner of the neighboring plantation and a man of conservative ideas, marched to the big house on a morning of dense fog. His boots struck the hardwood floor like hammer blows, and his voice thundered through the parlor when he expressed his indignation to Baron Tomas. "Tomas, what madness is this? Your daughter wants to free slaves en masse? This will give ideas to our blacks." "It's dangerous." The Baron, still learning to deal with the new reality of having a determined and independent daughter, tried to remain calm. "Bernardino, she's using her own inheritance. She has that right." "Right? What right does a girl raised in the slave quarters have to meddle in the order of things? This will end in rebellion." Esperanza, coming from the kitchen with a coffee tray, stopped at the door upon hearing the conversation. With the serenity that had already become her trademark, she entered the parlor and placed the tray on the jacaranda table. "Colonel Bernardino," she said, serving coffee with elegant gestures that revealed her refined education. "I can explain my plans to you if you wish to hear them." The colonel looked at her suspiciously, but the etiquette of the time required listening to a lady, even though he considered the situation irregular. "Speak then." "I don't intend to encourage rebellion, sir. I intend to create opportunities. Educated people with their own means of subsistence are more stable than desperate people. A former slave with his own land and knowledge won't steal or rebel. He'll work to prosper." Her words had the crystalline logic of someone who had thought much about the matter. The colonel, despite his initial resistance, couldn't help but admire the young woman's intelligence. "And how do you guarantee these freedmen won't leave for the cities, creating problems there?" "Because I'll give them reasons to stay. Land to cultivate, fair contracts to sell their products, education for their children. Why would anyone abandon a dignified life?" Dr. Vicente had returned from Sao Paulo that week with all necessary documents. Isabel Christina's fortune was even greater than imagined. It included not only money and land, but also investments in shipping companies and bank stocks from the court. "Esperanza," he said, spreading the papers on the table, "you have sufficient resources to free not only the female slaves from this plantation, but also to buy adjacent lands where they can establish their families." The young woman's eyes shone with a light Caterina knew well, the same light that appeared when she had an especially generous idea. "What if we created a kind of cooperative, where the freedmen could work together, share knowledge, help each other?" What unexpected resistance and support will emerge as Esperanza's plans take shape? How will Baron Tomas himself react to seeing his daughter transforming not only individual lives, but the entire social structure of the region? Winter 1866 brought with it not only the cold that made frost kiss the coffee leaves at dawn, but also a profound transformation in the soul of São Bento plantation. The first freedom letters had been signed, and 20 women who awoke as slaves would sleep free. Rosa was the first to receive her freedom. When Dr. Vicente read the official document, her legs trembled so much that Esperanza had to support her body. Am I truly free?" she asked, as if fearing it was just a cruel dream. "Free, Mother Rosa. Free forever," responded Esperanza, calling her mother, a title she had decided to give to all the women who raised her. The liberation ceremonies took place in the big house parlor, but had something sacred that transcended legal formality. Baron Tomas had insisted on being present, and with each signed document, something moved in his hardened heart. Caterina was the last to receive her freedom. In a special ceremony held at sunset, when Dr. Vicente spoke the final words, You are free from all and any slavery. She knelt before Esperanza. No, Mother Caterina, said the young woman, gently lifting her. Now we are equal before the law. We are mother and daughter by choice, not obligation. The Baron observed that scene, and for the first time since Isabel Christina's death, felt tears flowing down his cheeks. They weren't tears of sadness, but of repentance so profound it seemed to heal old wounds in his soul. Esperanza, he said, approaching his daughter, may I speak with you? They walked together through the garden where Isabel Christina had planted her roses. The plants, abandoned after her death, had grown wild, but their flowers still perfumed the air with nostalgic sweetness. I never asked your forgiveness, he said, his hoarse voice laden with emotion. I never assumed what I did to you, what I tried to do to you. Esperanza stopped before a particularly exuberant rosebush, its red flowers glowing in the golden light of sunset. Father, forgiveness isn't asked for, it's offered, and I forgave you long ago. How can you forgive the unforgivable? Because I learned that carrying resentment is like carrying stones in your heart, and I prefer to use my heart for love. In that moment, something definitively broke in the Baron's chest. Tears came abundantly, washing away 15 years of guilt and wounded pride. I want to help with your projects. I want to do something right for once in my life. Then help me build the school, Father. Use your influence so other landowners accept our ideas. Show them that change doesn't mean destruction, it means evolution. From that night on, Baron Thomas actively involved himself in his daughter's projects. His administrative experience and regional contacts became valuable tools for implementing the changes dreamed by Esperanza. What new challenges will arise as the school and cooperative begin to take shape? How will the transformation at São Bento Plantation influence other properties in the region? Spring 1867 bloomed at São Bento Plantation as never before seen. Where once existed only an abandoned shed in the back of the property, now rose a construction of bricks and red tiles, with wide windows that let the sun's golden light flood rooms prepared to receive knowledge. The Isabel Christina College for orphaned and freed girls was almost ready, and Esperanza walked the corridors, still smelling of fresh paint, with her heart overflowing with joy. Caterina accompanied her, suggesting adjustments with the wisdom of one who knew the practical needs of an education that needed to be both intellectual and vocational. Here will be the sewing room, said Esperanza, pointing to a room with several windows. The girls will learn not only to sew for themselves, but to produce pieces to sell. Financial independence is as important as knowing how to read. And there, asked Caterina, indicating another space, culinary room. Not just domestic cooking, but also fine sweets preserves, products they can sell at Santos and São Paulo fairs. Dr. Vicente had returned from a trip to the court with encouraging news. The Emperor showed interest in your project, Esperanza. There's possibility of official government support for educational initiatives aimed at freedmen, but not everything was roses in that garden of hopes. Colonel Bernardino had organized a meeting with other regional landowners, trying to create resistance to Esperanza's projects. This will lead to disorder, he insisted. A literate black is a dangerous black. It was then that something unexpected happened. Baron Thomas, arming himself with courage he didn't know he possessed, attended the neighbors' meeting to defend his daughter. Gentlemen, he said, facing hostile looks, I come to speak to you about something I witnessed. I saw slaves freed by my daughter working with more dedication than they ever worked under the whip. I saw women who gained dignity producing more and better than when they were property. Freedom didn't make them lazy. It made them hopeful. His words caused murmur in the assembly. Some landowners began questioning their own convictions. And more, continued the Baron, I saw my daughter transform resentment into gratitude, abandonment into love, despair into hope. If she can achieve these miracles with a human heart, imagine what she can achieve with an entire region. Colonel Bernardino stood up, irritated. Thomas, you're being influenced by dangerous ideas. I'm being influenced by practical results, Bernardino, and by the teachings of the religion we all profess. Christ didn't come for the rich and powerful. He came for the humble and needy. The meeting ended without consensus, but some seeds of doubt had been planted in the more open hearts of those landowners. Meanwhile, at the plantation, the first students arrived at the college. Orphaned girls of various ages, some daughters of freed slaves, others from orphanages in São Paulo and Santos. Esperanza received them personally, ensuring each felt welcome and valued. How will the official inauguration of the college be? What important personalities will honor the event? And how will this affect acceptance of the project in the region? September 15, 1867 dawned clear and golden, as if heaven itself conspired to bless the inauguration of Isabel Cristina College. From the early morning hours, elegant carriages climbed São Bento Plantations Road, bringing guests from various provincial cities and even from the court. Esperanza, dressed in a navy blue outfit embroidered with golden ribbons that she had helped make herself, received visitors alongside her father and Caterina, who proudly wore the silk dress her daughter had given her. Caterina's physical transformation was impressive. Free, well-fed, and appropriately dressed, she revealed a natural dignity that captivated all who knew her. Among the illustrious guests was Councillor José Bonifacio, the younger, nephew of the Independence patriarch and fervent defender of the abolitionist cause. His presence gave official credibility to Esperanza's project and silenced many criticisms. "Miss Esperanza," he said, respectfully kissing her hand, "your project represents Brazil's future. Her future where education, not slavery, will be the basis of our progress." Dona Veridiana da Silva Prado, one of São Paulo's most influential women, had also attended, bringing other ladies of São Paulo's high society. "My dear," she said, examining the college facilities, "this is exemplary. These girls will receive better education than many daughters of the aristocracy." The official ceremony began in late afternoon, when the sun's golden light created an almost sacred atmosphere over the college courtyard. A priest from Santos, Dr. Vicente's friend, blessed the facilities, and Esperanza climbed a small platform to give her inaugural speech. "Dear friends," she began, her clear voice echoing through the silent courtyard, "this college is not just a building, it's a symbol that the future can be different from the past. Here, girls whom society considered worthless will learn they possess talent, intelligence, and dignity." The audience listened in absolute silence, touched by the sincerity and passion that overflowed from each word. "This college bears my mother's name, Donna Isabel Cristina, because she taught me, even after death, that true love doesn't die. It transforms into actions that benefit other people." Esperanza paused, her eyes meeting Caterina's in the crowd. "But I also dedicate this school to my mother, Caterina, who taught me that it doesn't matter where we're born or in what conditions we live. What matters is how we choose to love and be loved." Tears flowed freely down many faces present. Even Colonel Bernardino, who had attended more out of curiosity than support, seemed touched by the moment's emotion. "May this college be the first of many," continued Esperanza, "and may each girl who passes through here know she's worth as much as any person born in a palace, because that's what I learned, that a person's value isn't in their cradle, but in their heart." When she finished, the applause was long and warm, but the most emotional moment was yet to come. Baron Thomas climbed the platform, his hands trembling slightly with emotion. "My friends," he said, "I want to make a public confession. 16 years ago, I committed the greatest error of my life. I rejected this extraordinary young woman because she wasn't the male son I desired. Today, before all of you, I ask my daughter's forgiveness and thank God that she found the love I was incapable of giving." How will Esperanza react to this public confession? What definitive changes will this ceremony bring to the father-daughter relationship, and what will be the lasting impact on local society? 6 months had passed since Isabel Cristina College's inauguration, and spring 1868 had brought fruits that surpassed Esperanza's most optimistic dreams. The college functioned with 40 boarding students and 20 day students, and its first graduates were already beginning to work as teachers on neighboring plantations or as independent artisans in Santos. Esperanza walked the school corridors on a golden October morning, observing her girls, for that's how she thought of them, dedicated to their studies. In the Portuguese room, a group read José de Alencar excerpts aloud. In the mathematics room, others calculated interest and percentages that would help them manage their own businesses. In the sewing workshop, skillful hands created embroidery already commissioned by São Paulo families. "Miss Esperanza," called a familiar voice. It was Maria do Carmo, one of the first students, now 18 and about to graduate. "Do you have a moment?" "I always have time for you, Maria do Carmo." "What happened?" "I received a marriage proposal, miss. From Francisco, that young man who works in your father's cooperative, but I wanted to ask your opinion." Esperanza smiled tenderly. In recent months, she had become confidant, counselor, and almost mother to dozens of young women who found in her not only education, but the affection life had denied them. "Do you love him, Maria Ducamo?" "Yes, I do, miss, and he respects me. He said he wants me to continue working as a teacher after marriage, that he sees value in my studies." "Then you already have your answer. A man who values your education is a man who will value you." That afternoon, Esperanza received a special visit. Dr. Vicente arrived from São Paulo bringing extraordinary news. "Esperanza," he said, barely containing his excitement, "the Ministry of Empire wants to finance the creation of 5 more colleges like this one in different provinces. Your project has become a national model. And there's more," he continued, taking an official document from his briefcase. "Emperor D. Pedro II wishes to receive you at court. He wants to personally meet the young woman who is revolutionizing education in the country." Esperanza received the news with the same serenity with which she received all important things in life, not as personal glory, but as opportunity to do more good. That night she dined with her father and Caterina in the big house parlor, which was now regularly frequented by both. The relationship with Baron Tomas had evolved into true affection, built not on blood ties, but on mutual respect and admiration. "Father," she said, "I would like you to accompany me to court. I want the emperor to meet the man who had courage to change, to grow, to become better." Baron Tomas felt his heart warm with those words. "It would be an honor, my daughter. And you too, Mother Caterina. I want you to see the imperial palace, to know the royal library. The woman who taught me to read deserves to know where all the world's books live." Caterina smiled, her hands caressing the fine fabric of the dress she now wore naturally. "I never imagined that an old slave like me—" "No," Esperanza gently interrupted. "A brilliant educator like you, a dedicated mother like you, a wise woman like you." Later, alone in her room, the same that had been her biological mother's and which she now occupied, Esperanza opened the window to contemplate the coffee plantation under moonlight. It was no longer the place where a child had been abandoned to die. It was the place where a young woman had learned that love can flourish in the most unlikely soils. At her desk, she wrote a letter to one of her former students now teaching in Campinas. "My dear Isabel," the name she had chosen in honor of the mother she never knew, "I remember what you told me on your graduation day. Teacher Esperanza, how can I repay everything you did for me? Today I have the answer. Repay by doing for other girls what we did for you. Love multiplies when shared, never when hoarded." She signed the letter, sealed it with perfumed wax, and left it on the table to be posted the next morning. Then she knelt before the small image of Our Lady that Caterina had given her years ago and made her nightly prayer, not asking anything for herself but thanking for being chosen as an instrument of transformation. Outside, the night wind made the coffee plantation leaves whisper stories of redemption. And in the perfumed silence of that night, 3 generations of women, Isabel Cristina in heaven, Caterina in her employee's room that was now family, and Esperanza in her quarters, were finally united by love that transcends time, skin color, and social condition. Some bento plantation fell asleep that night, cradled by the certainty that the future, like a well-planted seed cared for with love, always blooms more beautiful than the past. True love knows no borders. It transforms them into bridges.